There's a really good question which is coming up in the newspapers at the moment, which is why does Reform UK know why people are voting Reform? Reform UK claims to represent those who have been abandoned by Westminster, yet recent actions, notably on immigration, reveal ideological confusion and strategic incoherence. The core question is, if Reform cannot stay consistent on its central issue, immigration, while in opposition, how can it be trusted to govern? The immigration contradiction, Reform's foundational issue is anti-immigration sentiment, which gives it a lot of parallels with other movements in the past. But leading figures like David Bull and Lyndon Kemp-Curran have praised or defended migrant worker schemes. Bull says immigration is the lifeblood of the country. Kemp-Curran says has opposed Labour's crackdown on care worker visas. And this undermines the party's claim to ideological clarity and risks alienating its base. Why people actually vote Reform and YouGov and Hope Not Hate have done some investigation, produced some data, and the data shows the top issues are immigration, economy, the NHS and the cost of living. Reform is not just a party of anger, it's perceived as different, decisive and unafraid. Well, that's partly because it's never been in power. And as we see, when it does get power, its members run away. Support comes especially from older men. It's very gender-based. Leave voters and disillusioned ex-Tories and Labour defectors, young men seeking identity, purpose and a voice. Does that give us enough to explain why or how or who Reform is attracting? The right-wing rhetoric meets populist left economics in terms of nationalising steel, defending unionised labour and so on. Simultaneously, it champions free market deregulation, the Britannia card for the ultra-wealthy. It's hardline on immigration, but pro-reindustrialisation, which may require migrant labour. It's got a preference for austerity in principle, expansion in practice. It vows to slash public spending, yet raise NHS budgets and cut taxes. It doesn't all make sense, and it doesn't. I don't think it would work economically. As for the local elections, the major victories were in working-class deindustrialised areas, and Reform is now second in dozens of red wall seats. Polls suggest that 180 plus seats in a general election could be won under current trends, but 49% of the public say they'd never vote Reform. That's a ceiling as well as a surge. Labour's dilemma, Starmer is caught between the Blue Labour tendency, and that's Glassman and Hermer, and the Liberal left MPs, and Reform is exploiting Labour's cultural ambiguity and economic caution, as well as the Conservatives' complete incompetence and deadbeat delusion under Kemi Badenoch. Labour must avoid pandering on immigration and instead offer tangible, localised, community-led change. And as Georgina Lamming of Hope Not Hate says, Reform hides its extremism behind potholes and dentist appointments. And Reform's rise is not merely a backlash, it's a revolt against managerial centrism. This is not just about Farage, it's about political alienation. And Farage simply offers an alternative to Labour and the Conservatives. When Jeremy Corbyn gets his party up and running, he will attract a sizable vote of discontent as well. Because these votes for Reform and for Corbyn are about discontent and frustration rather than about support for the most part. Reform's rise is not merely a backlash, though. It's a revolt against what's going on. It's a revolt against this managerial centrism. And it's not just about Farage. It's about low rents, low wages, high rents, failed levelling up, net zero costs, poor public services, cultural disorientation, about the promises made in the past by political parties and not realised, and yet Farage has made the same promises which he cannot realise. Farage has repackaged Thatcherite nostalgia with a dose of post-industrial nationalism, borrowing from Trump and the AFD playbooks. Reform has mastered the language of grievance, but it lacks the grammar of governance. And the party's contradictions on immigration, on economics, on local government are already showing. The question is not whether Reform UK reflects public disillusion. It does. The real question is whether it can survive contact with reality or whether it will join UKIP and the Brexit Party in the dustbin of protest politics, all led, oddly and ironically, by the same person.